Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Flaxseed Crackers. That's right, meet the Flackers. Which, by the way, is what I really would have loved to call these. Except someone had already registered that name. Which was unfortunate, but good for them. But anyway, names aside, when I found out you could turn this superfood into crispy, delicious crackers, basically just by adding water, I decided to give it a try, and was very happy with the results. So with that, let's go ahead and get started by adding some flax seeds to a bowl. And I'm using the brown variety here, but they also come in a lighter golden version. And either one will work here. And while these seeds and some water are the only mandatory ingredients, we should probably also add a little bit of seasoning, which I'm going to do with some salt. Although I hear some people use soy sauce, and I might try that next time. I'm also going to add a little bit of garlic powder, as well as some onion powder. And then we'll also go ahead and add a few shakes of cayenne, just to stay in shape. And then last but not least, we will add the same amount of cold fresh water as we added seeds. Okay, so equal parts flax seeds and water. And believe it or not, that's it. All we need to do is take a fork and give this a mix. At which point we're going to wrap this up and then transfer it into the fridge overnight so the seeds can fully hydrate. And I've heard you can get away with just soaking these for a few hours, but I've also heard that overnight is better. So as with most things, that's going to be up to you. You guys are after all the Lou Reeds of how long to soak your seeds. But I did wrap mine up and pop them in the fridge overnight, and then pulled them out the next morning, at which point they look like this. And as you can see, all that water's been absorbed. And the seeds have taken on a very, very interesting texture. They've gotten very thick and stiff, yet the mixture is still pliable. And they feel like something sort of halfway between sticky and slimy, which is good because that's what's going to hold these crackers together. So what we'll do is go ahead and transfer that onto a lined baking sheet. And as you can see, I'm using a Silpat, but I hear parchment paper will also work. And what we'll do using some sort of spatula is spread this out to about 1/8 of an inch thick, which is going to be maybe about 3 seeds deep, in case that helps. And as we spread this, we want to try to get it as even as possible, which thanks to this truly unique texture is actually pretty easy. And I guess if you want, you could put a piece of plastic wrap over this and sort of press it down. But I went freestyle and it worked out pretty well. And while you can spread this a little bit thicker, be careful not to go too thin, because they might end up a little too fragile once they're crisp. Alright, I want these things sturdy enough to be able to stand up to all your basic spreads and dips. So I went ahead and spread that out as shown, and then went around with a spatula and sort of evened up the edges, which I'm guessing is unnecessary, but I did it anyway. And then if we want, we could just bake this as is, and then once done, sort of break it up into irregular pieces. But I'm actually going to take this bench scraper and go ahead and score this into 32 squares. Or I guess technically rectangles, if that's the kind of thing that would bother you. And that way, once these are crisp and cooled, we can break them up into some regularly sized portions. And that's it. Once that's set, these are ready to bake, if you can even call it that, since we're going to transfer this into the center of a very low 200-degree oven for about 3 hours or so, or until our crackers are crisp. But what I did after the 1 hour mark, since I noticed my lines were disappearing, is I pulled them out and reestablished those break lines. And while it was sort of firming up a little bit, and sort of starting to get crisp, I could tell it still had a ways to go. So I popped it back in, for a total of about 3 hours, at which point they looked like this. They had sort of darkened up, and apparently contracted a little, because I could see that Silpat had sort of buckled up here and there. And while I thought these did feel crispy, I went ahead and tested anyway, since fork don't lie. Oh yeah. And that's it. All we have to do is wait for these to cool, which I'm going to recommend we do in the turned off oven, with the door slightly cracked, which I think will help make sure these are fully dehydrated. And that's it. Once these were totally cool, we can go ahead and break them up, which should be pretty easy if we scored these ahead of time. And like I said, if you don't, you could just break these into regular pieces, which who knows, might even look cooler. And then once we have these successfully separated, they're ready to enjoy any way you'd enjoy a regular cracker, which for me this time was going to be with a thin slice of farmhouse cheddar. And not only are these crackers super light and very crisp, they also taste pretty good, which is not always the case with superfood substitutes. I'm looking at you, quinoa. But anyway, above and beyond the fantastic texture, these really are delicious. So I decided to have one more. Only this time I decided to upgrade my cheese with some membrillo, which is a quince paste. which is sort of sweet and tart, and makes for an absolutely perfect pairing with that earthy, nutty cracker. But anyway, that's it. The very simple and easy technique for making your own flaxseed crackers. Or as I wished I could call them, flackers. And besides the amazing texture and great taste, from what I hear, flax seeds are one of the most nutritious things you could possibly eat. So besides making up an interesting snack, we can also get a head start on those New Year's resolutions. You know, the ones like eat less processed carbs and more birdseed. So for all those reasons and more, I really do hope you give these a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.